Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Candid Conversations about network marketing. And as usual, I'm BK, and on the other end, Dr. Wayne.
Hi, everyone. Hi, BK.
So, we are going to talk about something very interesting, something about anchors. And obviously, if you are a ship, you would wish that you have a great anchor, but we are not ships. So, sometimes we need to let go of some of the anchors. And we want to learn about how to release the things that are holding us back, right? This sounds absolutely fascinating because oftentimes we find that we want to go somewhere and some things are holding us back. So today we're going to talk about that. And I'm eager to learn what Dr. Wayne has to say about this. Dr. Wayne?
Lovely. Thanks, BK. So before we go on, as per normal, I like to go through what we talked about last time. And last time we talked about learn how your thoughts can dictate your future. And we specifically looked at this in line with the law of correspondence. And the law of correspondence basically states as above, so below, as below, so above. This means that think of it like there's a harmony of agreement and correspondence between the physical, the mental, and the spiritual realms. So there is no separation since everything in the universe, including you, originates from the one source. The same pattern is expressed in all planes of existence, from the smallest electron to the largest star, and vice versa. And we will be talking about the law of correspondence a little bit more shortly, but we went really deep in how we can actually use this law, and remembering this law is immutable, which means we can't change it, but like gravity, we can use it to still travel from one part of the globe to the other once we understand how to use a law in our favor. And we talked deep into this, how to use your thoughts to dictate your future. It was a very fascinating episode. And for those people who would like to hear more about that specific law, the law of correspondence, which is the second immutable law, please go to our podcast and BK will go through how to go to that later on. But now, what we really want to look at now, as mentioned by BK, is something about an anchor. And I've called this one, Discover How to Release the Anchors That May Be Holding You Back. And what we're going to do here is use the law of polarity to understand how we can let go of these anchors that may be holding back. You have everything you want at your fingertips, yet we choose an anchor. So what do I mean by this? And usually there can be several anchors, and remembering it's no one's fault. From previous episodes, or if you're new to this podcast, you may already know that 90 to 95% of our thoughts occurred 90 to 95% of our subconscious thoughts were programmed prior to the age of 7, meaning that we are living out someone else's thoughts. So if you have certain biases and certain thoughts that you think is you, for example, you might like a red dress, or you might like a certain cap, or you might like a certain football club, or a certain code, you might love fishing. All this was programmed, or most of this was programmed prior to the age of 7. Now, the positive aspects of that are fantastic, but unfortunately, a lot of this, these subconscious thoughts, can be actually a huge challenge moving forward in our lives. And just going through the law of polarity, so I'll just go backwards a little bit with the law of correspondence, just to clarify that a little bit more. What we really mean by that is that the law of correspondence basically states that we are only 1 degree in separation from source. So think of source, or think of oneness, or think of your divinity as being the purest of all energy, meaning high energy, meaning unconditional love, meaning empathetic, meaning compassionate, meaning motivated, meaning focused, meaning clarity. Think of all the positive words you could ever think of, and that is your source. However, what happens is, because of these subconscious thoughts that were programmed prior, no fault to anyone, however it does happen, what happens is, because this seems so real to us, what happens is we basically want to stay with the anchors we know, meaning that most people don't like change, and the anchors that we know might be, for example, the conscious mind wants to become the number one network marketer in your zone, or even in your team, and then even within your company, for example. However, the anchor might be from prior to the age of 7 that selling is one of the worst things. To get into sales is one of the worst things you could ever do. Money doesn't grow on trees. You have to work hard to accomplish things. And these are people's anchors. However, our true source, when we understand the law of correspondence, basically says that we're only 1 degree separation. However, why do most humans, 90 to 95% of humans, choose the negative? It's an interesting question. And sorry, BK, do you want to chime in there with anything there so far?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, sometimes when we hear such things, it sounds a bit distant, and that's not possible. You mean there's somebody who is in my head, literally in my head, right? But if you're a parent, like for myself, right? I remember when we first. You see, the thing is that nobody is prepared to be a parent. There is no instruction manual. There are plenty of books written about it, but it is a on-the-job training kind of thing, right?
It is,
and
yeah.
One of the things I realized very early on was that there was a specific teaching point that talked about when your child falls. Normally, if the adults don't react to that incident, right? If the child runs and trips and falls, if the adults in the room do not react to that incident, the child normally would just pick himself up or pick herself up, dust off her knees, and go on the day as though that nothing has happened. Right?
Yeah.
But when the adults in the room, because of that incident, they go to her and then they try to find out whether she's all right, and they look worried and anxious and everything, she starts crying. Because she suddenly realized, or she thinks that something bad has happened, and therefore she needs to cry. So same incident, same thing that happened, but because of how we have reacted to her falling, we program something into her, right? And I've observed that in children many times. When we don't react to that incident, the child actually normally by default would just pick himself or pick herself up and go on her day and go on playing, right? So we actually do when we are at that age, we don't realize it, but there's been plenty of such things that goes on. Like, I mean, a common example is the fear of darkness, or the fear of the dark, right? I mean, we should love the dark because when we were in the womb, we were in the dark for 10 months.
A long time.
Yeah. We should love the dark more than light. We should fear light, but yet it is the other way around. Again, it is conditioned by people. So that is what Dr. Wayne means by being programmed. And interestingly enough, I think because from the age of 0 to 7 years old or 9 years old, imagine how many things have been programmed in us without our willingness, in a sense.
Yeah. And even from there's many experiments that have been done when you get an 18-month or 2-year-old and you put them in a room and they've never encountered a snake before, and they'll put a dozen snakes in the room, and the snakes will crawl all over the child, and the child will just kind of like brush them off. And of course, they're non-venomous. And as you said, BK, if an adult ran into or came into that room and saw all this, they'd be, imagine what would happen. And what this leads to is understanding that there is really no such thing as stress. It's our perception of reality that gives stress. So if you, for example, when I was young, I was shown how to pick up snakes. So I was able to pick up snakes, and snakes do not perturb me whatsoever, even if it's one of the deadliest, brown snake. I've picked them up when I was younger, not young, but younger. So I was shown how to look at snakes in a different way, in a positive way. And they've even done the same with young children with spiders. They put spiders in the room and the spiders then crawl over the child and the spiders just get brushed off and there's no big problem. But as you said, imagine what would happen if you've got a parent. So now you've got two parents. One of the parents that will come in, or say now you've got two children. One child is in the room and another child is in another room, and they both have the spiders crawling over them, for example. We'll call the child in one of the rooms child A, therefore has a mother and father, mum and dad A, for example. If mum and dad walk into that room and they have huge challenges with spiders, that child, because of the mum and dad's reactions, as you eloquently said before, BK, is that because of mum and dad's prejudices towards spiders, will now react in a way that now gives the child a negative reaction to that. And now we've got child B, who is in a different room, but the same spiders, and the mother and father understand spiders, they love them, they basically will pick a spider up and put it outside because they don't want to kill it, and they will have a different reaction. So this child now will basically have a totally different reaction to the reality of spiders. And this is what we mean by there's no such thing as stress, it's only our perception of stress, what it actually means to us. So the law of polarity, how can we use the law of polarity to allow us to move through, to drop our anchors? And we're going to, first of all, though, I think what we have to do is go into understanding what the law of polarity actually means. And if you're looking at the screen, and BK will go through, if you want to look at, you might want to do that now, BK. If people do want to get the show notes, what do they have to do, where they have to go to? So if they do want to look at it, they can then see what I'm looking at as well.
So as Dr. Wayne just mentioned, we now have show notes. And if you want to follow along, because sometimes some of the terms might be new and it's good to have something visual. So if you want the show notes, just go to networkmarketerpodcast.com. Go to networkmarketerpodcast.com and just drop in your email, and we'll be happy to send it to you. So you have access to this show note as well as all the show notes for the past episodes.
Lovely, thanks, mate. So the law of polarity, I'm sure you're all probably familiar with the yin-yang symbol, the yin-yang symbol of traditional Chinese medicine. And that's what the law of polarity is basically about. Yin and yang is a term that we may have heard in traditional Chinese medicine, as mentioned. But the law of polarity is everything has poles, everything has pairs or opposites. And opposites are identical in nature, but different in different degrees. And this is the first of what's called the mutable laws, which means that we can transcend this particular law. We can actually now allow ourselves to acknowledge X and head towards the opposite polarity. So say, for example, if we are finding ourselves unable to attract wealth because of programming that may have been happening prior, and unfortunately to this day, you've found wealth difficult. The first thing is to acknowledge that you are at the other end of the polarity. The other end of the polarity is that everything is there for you. Wealth is there for you. And this is really something interesting. And I know this is a hard concept to grasp, but once you formulate something in your mind, you write it down, and then you visualize it, what happens is the universe has already allowed that to be available to you, no matter what it be. But the anchor is the unconscious physical body, because it holds the emotions of all the anchors that have been programmed into our body. Meaning that if you have an anchor that you've got to work hard, selling is terrible, network marketing is a terrible business to be in. These are all someone else's biases, by the way. They're typically not yours. But what happens is these anchors are real, And they're hard to find. I call them slippery fish at times. These slippery fish, they're in our mind, and they say from science there's about 70,000 thoughts that occur every day in our mind, and most of these are slippery fish. We don't even, if I said to you, do you think you'd be thinking 70,000 thoughts per day? You'd probably go, no, I wouldn't think that. But that's what science says every one of us thinks. And unfortunately, about 80 to 90% of these thoughts for most people are negative because it's on the opposite end of the polarity. What we need to do now is actually go to the other end of this polarity, which is more towards the positive. So the first thing is to understand that this is a universal law. Secondly, it's important to understand to take responsibility for your thoughts. And a good thing that we've mentioned in other podcasts is to simply ask the question, what am I thinking about? And you'll be amazed at what you're thinking about. And I've had many people, when I first ask this, they'll say, oh, no, I'm not thinking about anything. And then they'll go away and I won't see them for a week or 2 weeks. And then I say, did you apply every now and again what you're thinking about? And they'll come back and they go, I was amazed at what I was thinking about. And when you actually put this into some sort of formulation to do daily, everyone is amazed at what they are thinking about. And unfortunately, they're even more amazed that they're actually negative things that they're thinking about. And when you understand what we're just talking about now, these are the anchors that hold everyone back. They hold everyone back, unfortunately. Anything there so far, BK?
No, when you were talking about that, I kind of remember a phrase that we always hear, that there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? So if you think of it like what Dr. Wayne just described, then it just means that you are already on the rainbow and you just have to walk to the other end because that's where the pot of gold is. So what Dr. Wayne is trying to express here is that between poverty and wealth, for example, it is actually the same rainbow. It's just that you're on different ends of it. And the very fact that you can start to think about something that you want or aspire to, then you kind of already you're on that plane, for example, or on that rainbow, right? You just have to walk to the other end or get to the other end of it, because then that's where the pot of gold is waiting for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well put. And so think of it like all the different polarities that we can quickly think of. You might think of love and hate, peace and war, positive and negative, good and bad, yes and no, light and darkness, energy and matter. And the law of polarity, because it's a mutable law, means that we can change it. So we can change our thoughts from hate to love, or from anger to love, from fear to courage, and by consciously raising our vibrations. And this art of polarity is fascinating when we really grasp it. And I think we have mentioned it before. And for the first timers that haven't listened to us before, I think Abraham Lincoln did it in a really nice way in terms of trying to change his thoughts. He used to have a pocketbook, and for the 7 days of the week, and he used to put one particular emotion that he wanted to transform himself into. So it might have been, for example, love. And for that day, he would then tick how many times he would express love and gratitude. And then he put a cross for those times that he was able to then see the negative. The next day might be courage, and he'd do the same thing. So what can we do to allow ourselves to transform this law of polarity? Because if we just use the simple words of ego and intuition, so ego, think of that typically as the negative, and intuition is typically the positive. When we're born, because of all the programming, when we're born up until the age of when we're born, I'll go backwards. When we're born, we're mainly all intuition. By the time we get to the age of 7, it's now 80% ego, 20% intuition. Our goal through life is to change that to 80% intuition and 20% the other way. And from understanding the law of correspondence, which means that we're only 1 degree separation from pure source, that means that we know and we attune to our intuition. It is easy to get there if we can, firstly, be responsible in our actions. Secondly, do what is necessary to move yourself from one aspect of negative to another aspect of positive. And this law of polarity, we can change. It's so exciting. And especially when we understand the other laws, we can then use them in our favor as well. So rising above the law of polarity, this principle of duality, may be difficult at first when you grasp it, but after time, after even listening to this today, alerting you to it, it will actually then, there's a part of the brain called the reticular activation system that basically now allows you to think more about what I've just said. So for example, how does this reticular activation system work? So say you want to buy a new car and you've decided to buy I'll say a Toyota RAV4, for example. And up until this day, you really didn't see too many Toyota RAV4s. But when you decided that you wanted to buy one, all of a sudden you just see Toyota RAV4s, the very color that you wanted, a silver gray, for example. They are everywhere. It's not that they weren't there everywhere prior. It's just that your reticular activation center wasn't activated to actually acknowledge these things. And the same with, this is the beautiful part about listening to these podcasts. And we generally suggest to listen to them 4 or 5 times, even more than that, because each time you'll listen, your reticular activation center will then be activated even more to bring about the law of polarity into your life, meaning, do I want the negative? No, I don't. Do I want the positive? Yes, I do. So that's really important to grasp as well, just trying to move towards that. And just understanding it in terms of physics, the law of polarity was probably well defined by Newton, the third law of motion, when he basically said for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. And this is the law of polarity that has been known for over 40,000 years in ancient medicine and Western medicine. Well, how long has Newton been around, for example? It's not that long compared to ancient medicine's philosophies. But what happens is Western medicine does catch up by brilliant minds like Newton, that's for sure. And we talked about the traditional Chinese medicine, for example, the yin and yang. And just to take this concept a little bit further, in traditional Chinese medicine, the yin is the symbol of the earth, is femaleness, is darkness, is passivity, is absorption. It is present in the even numbers, in valleys and streams, and it is represented by the tiger, the color orange, and a broken line. And you can keep on going with regards to the yin, what it actually means. And think of solidness as well. Whereas yang is conceived of as heaven, maleness, light, activity, penetration. It is present in odd numbers, in mountains, and is represented by the dragon, the color azure, and an unbroken line. And yang organs are typically hollow. So yin organs, like the liver, for example, is a yin organ. The bladder, for example, is a yang organ. And I can talk about this probably for another hour, but we can use traditional Chinese medicine to actually understand a little bit about the law of polarity as well. And just to take it further again, the yin organs include the liver, the heart, the spleen, the lungs, the kidney, and the pericardium is sometimes considered a 6th yin organ. And the function of the yin organs is to produce, transform, regulate, and store fundamental substances such as qi or energy, blood, body fluids. In general, yin organs do not have empty cavities in general. You probably heard the word lungs there, but it's not a true empty cavity because we do have bronchial trees, we do have alveoli, etc. in there as well. And then of the 6 yang organs, we've got the gallbladder, the stomach, the small intestine, large intestine, bladder. And then there's something that they call the triple burner. It doesn't have a physical structure, and is considered kind of like a functional unit. The yang organs are mainly responsible for digestion of food and transmitting nutrients to the body. So the law of polarity can be expressed in many ways. It can even be expressed in terms of when you look at Ayurvedic medicine. I won't go into that deeply, but all medicine basically has this law of polarity in it as well. So the law of polarity gives us the tool to change our mindsets. And this is what we mean by letting go of the anchor. We now are aware that the anchor is there through listening to these podcasts. And what we're doing each time we meet, BK and I meet every Friday. Sometimes we may miss it, but basically every Friday we're here giving you new insights in how you can change your mindset from whatever it may be that's not serving you to something that is going to be joyous and happy, etc. So another theme or another way of looking at this is think of what you want as positive seeds. Every day, every second of every day, every minute of every day, think of how can I express these seeds of positiveness, or how can I think of these seeds of positiveness so that I can then change from the opposite end of the law of polarity, the negative, allowing the anchors to let go so that then I can achieve my dreams. So that's one way of looking at it as well. Another way, as mentioned, is to make a pocketbook and then look at the positive emotions that you want to be more like, and then actually do that over and over and over again. So, BK, any insights there, sir?
The thing is, like what Dr. Wayne was saying just now, all these things that we are doing, and the reason why Dr. Wayne and I are doing this is also because we have also benefited tremendously from other people's podcasts and audibles and books and so on. Because when we are not aware of what we are not aware of, right? But once you start being exposed to ideas, and this is what we are doing for you, right? We hope to bring value to you. Once you start to hear something, it kind of triggers or changes an aspect of you. And that is always often in a good side. And an example of this is recently, and this is actually quite in line with what you're saying, Dr. Wayne, this concept of green lights, yellow lights, and red lights, right?
Yeah.
And interestingly, I also, there was also a speaker who talked about this concept of never leave a place without a commitment. And that was something very new to me. But when I heard it and understood it, he basically says that whenever you encounter something, let's say somebody mentions in a podcast a particular book or a particular audible, and he says you should listen to it. And when he means never leave a place without a commitment, it's kind of like just buy the book first, just buy the audible first, just decide to get it because you had this impression that you should get it, right? And you might not ever get down to reading it. That's possible because you might have a lot of things, right? But what's interesting is that because you made that commitment, you kind of landed on the polarity of yes rather than no.
Yeah.
Because your default action might have been, I'll get to it later. And then you would forget about it altogether, right? But if you decide to, okay, I'll get it first, you landed on the polarity of yes. What will happen is that in time, you might get down to reading that book and then benefit from whatever is in the book. So recently I practiced that myself, and I heard on a podcast, somebody mentioned a book called Green Lights, which is interesting because it was a book by Matthew McConaughey. And I followed the principle of never leave without a commitment. I bought the book first. Now, true enough, I didn't get down to reading it for 2-3 weeks. But recently, because I was thinking about this concept of green lights again, I remembered that I bought the book. And then I went down to read, and I actually enjoyed the book. And I started reading, and I really enjoyed the first few pages already, right? Now, the concept is, if I had not acted and said yes and purchased the book, chances are I wouldn't have even remembered it. it would have probably just gone down the stream of consciousness into somewhere else. And I would not have even remembered that I came across this idea. But the fact that I actually said yes, I chose to operate on the positive side of the polarity. Um, it's benefiting me now.
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
just a practical way of what Dr. Wayne is talking about. And then hopefully what we are saying today is giving you ideas and positive seeds. And this is all we have, right? Seed and soil and sunshine and rain.
Yes, yes. And there was a great movie about that. That's right. It was called Yes Man by Jim Carrey. I don't know if you've seen it, BK.
Yes,
and it's literally Jim Carrey, who's I can't remember the name of the character. He was depressed and down. So his polarity was depression. Don't want to talk to my friends. Don't want to be around people. I hate work. Life is really terrible. Life is a pain. And it just kept on going down this negative spiral. And he somehow gets involved with a conference, and it was about saying the word yes. Everything that is applied to you or suggested to you, you just say yes. And it was interesting watching the movie in terms of all the different things that happened because he said yes. His life totally changed from a depressed person who didn't want to do anything to finding the love of his dreams, to finding to have whatever he wanted in his life. And this is literally an example of the law of polarity. Letting go of your anchors, letting go of those things that may be holding you back, allowing the law of correspondence to come into tune, which basically means that we head now towards our true nature, our divinity. And by understanding the law of correspondence, because it's a mutable law, we can do this quite easy. So plant many, many seeds of positiveness. That it's so important to understand, so important to do. And hopefully this podcast today has helped you in understanding how all this sits, because sometimes I know myself personally, but there's all these different concepts that are out there today. And what I like to do is understand it from a perspective that has been there for a long, long time. And the problem that I often find with Western medicine is that Western medicine is only as good as the technology of the day. And as the technology changes, so does what they then suggest. What I love about ancient medicine, and BK and I are just standing on the shoulders of ancient medicine knowledge and then basically helping people to understand it, is that these concepts have been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And Western medicine, through whether it be called physics, whether it be through called quantum physics, in the last 100 years have now actually started to really understand what these laws are about. So in essence, we want to use the law of polarity, which is mutable, which means we can change our dynamic nature or our nature from negative to positive, heading towards more the infinite self, heading towards more our true self, our intuitive self, our divine self, because it's already there. The divine self says no implicitly to these negative emotions. It's only because we have choice that we choose these negative emotions. Sorry, most of us choose these negative emotions. And because of the law of polarity, we now know that we can drop them and head towards more the source, which is so exciting for those people who really want to take this journey to another level. So hopefully that's made and really excited quite a few people there today, BK.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Wayne. And that nicely sums up our episode for today. We really want to put out more content to help everybody. And like what Dr. Wayne was saying, we're hopefully planting positive seeds for you, because you can only have good things from that, right? So once again, if you do want the show notes, do check us out at networkmarketerpodcast.com, networkmarketerpodcast.com. And at the same time, because of time, we haven't been able to go really, really deep into all these laws. We do have another program that is we dive really deep into all these laws that Dr. Wayne has mentioned, and ties them up together on how to help us to become the network marketer we aspire to become, right? So if you want that, you can always check us out at 5hiddenreasons.com. That is 5 hidden reasons with a numerical number 5, okay? 5hiddenreasons.com, and you will be able to find content about that, right? So to sum up and to wrap up today's episode, we want to kind of say that we believe in you, whoever you are listening to us today. It is obviously by no stroke of luck, or there's nothing by chance. The fact that you're listening to us, something has brought it to your attention, and we believe in you. You have chosen one of the best and the cleanest, like what Dr. Wayne always like to say, industries in the world. And we believe that we can truly help to change the world in many, many ways, no matter what company you're in. That is the truth of the matter, right? So congratulations for being in the industry. We believe in you. We know that you are able to hit the goals that you're going to set yourself up for. And definitely, we hope that what we do here on a weekly basis is one of the things that help you to reach the higher planes of success that you aspire to. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Dr. Wayne. Again, an interesting and exciting episode. And we look forward to next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, PK. Have a great week.